Hi, my name is Mia, and today I'm going to use AI to try to find my next favorite book. AI, or artificial intelligence, is no longer just a buzzword or an amorphous science fiction concept. It's literally everywhere, shaping the way we work, live, and even think. And it's developing at a rapid pace. So, just getting into the history a little bit. Artificial intelligence as a field traces its origins to the 1956 Dartmouth Conference, where John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Nathaniel Rochester, and Claude Shannon first set out to explore whether machines could simulate human intelligence. So the earliest systems, like Joseph Weizenbaum's ELIZA, relied on more symbolic reasoning and rule-based logic, like explicitly encoding human knowledge into formal structures. Then in the 70s and 80s, we saw the rise of expert systems such as MySyn for medical diagnosis, which demonstrated impressive domain-specific reasoning, but struggled to adapt beyond this narrow scope for more generalized applications like we see today. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, with the rise of the internet, although not directly related to the rise of the internet, advances in statistical machine learning began to displace purely symbolic approaches driven by increases in computational power. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Moore's law, the spread of digital data sets, and the recognition that pattern recognition at scale could outperform hand-coded rules. So you don't have to have explicit programming. We started to realize that computers could actually outdo human intelligence. So famously, for instance, IBM's Deep Blue, which is a chess computer, defeated world champion Garry Kasparov, often considered one of the greatest chess players of all time in chess. Now, jumping forward to the current day, when AI is such a hot topic, when did this start? So the deep learning revolution, it really began in earnest in 2012 when Geoffrey Hinton's team achieved a decisive victory in the ImageNet competition with AlexNet, which is a deep convolutional neural network trained on GPUs. And then in 2017, they introduced the transformer architecture, which allowed for a more efficient parallel processing and long-range dependency modeling, which forms the backbone of the large language models that dominate AI conversations today, such as like OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Anthropic's Claude. So today's AI landscape is defined by rapid progress in multimodal models, meaning taking multiple types of input and being able to generate multiple types of output, whether that be, images, text, audio, etc. Reinforcement learning from human feedback for better alignment, and breakthroughs in generative capabilities in text, images, code, and even in more scientific applications, protein structure predictions, like in DeepMind's AlphaFold, which I think is really amazing. These technologies have propelled artificial intelligence from narrow domain-specific tools to broadly capable systems, raising urgent technical and philosophical questions. So with the rise of AI, we have to think about how do we interpret the knowledge of models trained on the sum of human culture? Where do we draw the line between human and machine creativity? And what happens when, algorithms, I mean, this isn't directly related to machine learning, but the rise of social media in general, what happens when algorithms influence the books we read, the art we see, the ideas we encounter, just generally the media we consume? With all these rapid developments in technology, all these urgent questions are raised. But at the same time, these technological advancements enable great progress and innovative use cases. So, I mean, I'm fascinated by the rise of AI, and I read, a lot. I've already read over 100 books this year, so I figured an interesting use case would be to utilize AI to recommend a book. So this video just documents a quick ChatGPT book recommendation experiment, but in the future I'd love to develop an AI-based tool specifically for book recommendations, although my computer science and machine learning skills could definitely use some work before I do so. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so here I am putting in a prompt into ChatGPT that will help me find my next favorite book. So I'm asking ChatGPT to ask me 3 questions about my reading tastes, and then based on the information it provided, give me a book. So it gave me 3 questions, and then I'm answering them. One of my favorite books is When Breath Becomes Air, and I like the prose, themes, and relatability of that book. I'm craving a book that will emotionally challenge me, but not seriously disturb me. And as for things I don't want fantasy. I'm not a fantasy fan. Attack me in the comments, but yeah. So it recommended The Years by Annie Ernaux. So I'm putting that into my Goodreads now, so I can read a quick plot synopsis and put it on my TBR. So I did that, reading the plot synopsis, and now I have downloaded The Years as an EPUB file onto my laptop, and I'm opening it in Thorium Reader, which is an amazing EPUB reader. I just got it recently to read arcs from NetGalley, and I've been loving it so much better than the old EPUB reader I used to use. So here I am beginning to read The Years. Alright, so this is a time lapse of me reading The Years on my computer. Thorium Reader allows you to annotate your reads, so there's multiple highlight colors, and then you can write your notes, and you can see all your annotations in one place. I really enjoy that tool, so I'm doing some annotations here, just making some comments on the book. So as you see, I have 16 pages of annotations here. My system is sort of, I use green to note things that I enjoyed. I use red to note things that I disliked. I use blue just for normal comments, and I use purple for vocabulary words I'm unfamiliar with. So now going through some of the quotes I really enjoyed. So here, everything will be erased in a second. The dictionary of words amassed between cradle and deathbed eliminated. All there will be is silence and no words to say it. Nothing will come out of the open mouth, neither I nor me. Language will continue to put the world into words. In conversation around the holiday table, we will be nothing but a first name, increasingly faceless until we vanish into the vast anonymity of a distant generation. So I just thought much of what the author writes, especially this passage, is just so beautiful. So here's another quote I found very powerful. Our interest in them was inversely proportional to their duration and the distance from where we lived. So this quote just really emphasizes how the things that we claim to care about, the problems we advocate against, they're very dependent on where we live, how we've been raised, what our interests are. We're not interested in things that are seemingly unrelated to us, or, just long and drawn out. If we can't personally sympathize with something and understand something, then we just usually don't care. Here's another quote I found very powerful. September 11th suppressed all the dates that had stayed with us until then. As they had once said, after Auschwitz, people said after September 11th, a unique day. There began, we didn't know what, time was becoming globalized. So, I wasn't alive during 9/11, but I think what the author describes with all that happens during 9/11, pre-9/11, post-9/11, it really represents a turning point in global history. And just throughout this book, the author uses all these events throughout the history of France, history of Europe, global history that she's lived through. And she talks about that alongside the happenings and developments in her own life, her thoughts, her beliefs, her activities, and whatnot. So just finally, one more quote that I think really sums up what the whole book is about. It will be a slippery narrative composed in unremitting continuous tense, absolute devouring the present as it goes, all the way to the final image of life. An outpouring, but suspended at regular intervals by photos and scenes from films that capture the successive body shapes and social positions of her being. Freeze frames on memories, and at the same time reports on the development of her existence, the things that have made it singular, not because of the nature of the elements of her life, whether external, social trajectory, profession, or internal thoughts and aspirations, the desire to write, but because of their combinations, each unique unto itself. To this incessantly not she of photos will correspond in mirror image, the she of writing. There is no I in what she views as a sort of impersonal autobiography. There is only one, no we, as if it were now her turn to tell the story of the time before. So this really just sums up how the book is written, what it's about. And what's interesting to note here is that last line, there's no I, there's only one and we. So what's really interesting about this book is that the author, she uses we to describe her experiences and her thoughts and her activities, as if to suggest that she's not the only one like this, and she's representing and describing the experiences of an entire generation. So I really like that as well. It's a very creative and literary touch. So, is The Years now my all-time favorite book? Definitely not, but I would rate it 5 out of 5 stars, which is very high praise coming from me, considering that the vast majority of books I read do not even exceed 3-4 stars. So, what I liked about this book was really just primarily the writing quality. The author writes exceptionally beautiful lyrical prose that's just so wonderful and so enjoyable to read. And then secondly, the story she tells, which is essentially an autobiography, is very moving and emotionally resonant. And it also takes you through and teaches you pretty much the history of the second half of the 20th century and even extending into the 21st century. And it has a lot of very profound philosophical and political insights into how the world operates, which I really enjoyed as well. I don't personally agree with the political or philosophical views of this author, but I think it's still definitely worth reading and fun to read nonetheless. So, would I use AI in the future to find book recommendations? Possibly. But that's all I have to say for now, so bye.